You know that feeling? The one where the air gets sucked out of your lungs, your ears start ringing, and the whole world just goes silent? Like you're watching a movie of your own life, but the sound's cut out and everything's moving in slow motion, and you're just frozen. That was me. Standing there, amidst the laughter and the clinking glasses, the smell of cake and cheap champagne hanging heavy in the air. It was supposed to be the happiest day, right? Graduation. The culmination of years of hard work. Her hard work, sure, but mine too. Mine in a way nobody else in that rented community hall understood. Mine in a way that felt like ripped-out pages of my own future. The cork popped on another bottle somewhere behind me, and it sounded like a gunshot echoing the explosion that had just gone off inside my chest. Because I'd heard it. I'd heard Chloe, my fiancée, radiant in her cap and gown, the tassel still swaying proudly. That cap and gown, the fancy dinner afterwards, the goddamn degree itself, all courtesy of yours truly. She leaned over to her giggling friend, Sarah, I think her name was, and whispered, but not whispered enough, loud enough for the man who'd poured his soul and savings into her dream to hear clear as a bell. God, I can finally ditch the dead weight. Dr. Harrison is taking me to Europe this summer. Dead weight. That's what I was. After 5 years. After countless nights I'd spent working late, picking up extra shifts down at the plant, driving that beat-up truck because we couldn't afford car payments on a second vehicle while she was in school. After selling my grandfather's coin collection, the one thing I swore I'd never part with. After putting my own plans, my own dreams of maybe starting a small woodworking business on indefinite hold. All of it, every sacrifice, every whispered promise between us about our future, our success built on this foundation, reduced to dead weight. And Dr. Harrison? Her mentor? The distinguished, silver-haired literature professor she spent endless office hours with? Taking her to Europe. It wasn't just the words, it was the casual cruelty, the triumphant dismissal in her voice. The way she looked, relieved, like she'd just shed a heavy burden. Me. I was the burden. My name's Alex. I'm 32 now, but this all went down a few years back. I work in specialized manufacturing, precision parts, pays decently but it's demanding work. Long hours, dirty hands, but honest work. Work that paid for every single tuition bill, every textbook, every lab fee for Chloe's bachelor's, and then her master's in art history. We met 5 years before that graduation day. She was waitressing part-time, bright-eyed, full of ambition but frustrated. Her family didn't have money, couldn't help her with college beyond a few $100 here and there. She was smart, fiercely smart, and passionate about art, about history, about making something of herself. I fell for that spark, that drive. We fell in love, hard and fast, or so I thought. We talked about everything, kids, a house with a little yard, traveling someday when we could afford it. Our future. It always felt like our future. About a year into dating, she got accepted into the university program she'd dreamed of, but the financial aid wasn't enough. She was devastated, ready to give up. I couldn't stand seeing her like that. We talked late into the night, sitting on the floor of my tiny apartment. We can do this, Chloe, I remember saying, maybe stupidly idealistic back then. I can pick up more hours. We can cut back. Think of it as an investment in us. She cried, told me I was her savior, her rock. We made a plan. I'd cover her tuition and living expenses so she could focus entirely on her studies, graduate faster, maybe even with honors. Then, once she got a good job, curator, researcher, whatever she wanted, we'd build our life together. We got engaged the following year, a simple ring I'd saved for months to buy. It felt right. Solid. Everyone said we were the perfect team. He works hard, she studies hard, building a future together. What a crock of shit that turned out to be. Looking back now, through the sickening clarity of hindsight, the signs were there. Little cracks in the perfect facade I refused to see. The way she started talking about Dr. Harrison, probably halfway through her master's program. At first, it was just admiration. He's brilliant, Alex, she'd say. He really gets my thesis proposal. Then it became more frequent. Late nights at the library turned into study sessions at his office. Dinners I made grew cold while she was out at department mixers I was never invited to. Her clothes started changing, more sophisticated, more expensive than her part-time campus job could possibly afford. When I asked, she'd brush it off. Oh, Sarah let me borrow it. Or found it on clearance. She became more critical of me, subtly at first. Jokes about my simple job. Eye rolls when I talked about my woodworking hobby. She'd sigh dramatically when my truck needed repairs again. The physical affection dwindled, replaced by excuses. Too tired, too stressed, big exam coming up. I chalked it all up to the pressure of her studies, the final push towards graduation. I told myself to be patient, supportive. What a fool I was. I was so focused on the finish line, that I didn't see she was already sprinting in a different direction with a different partner. That graduation day, I was bursting with pride. I took the day off work, wore my best suit, bought her a ridiculously expensive fountain pen engraved with her name and new credentials. Her parents were there, beaming. They thanked me, told me I was such a good man for helping Chloe achieve her dream. We all went out for that fancy dinner she wanted, the one at the place overlooking the river. I picked up the tab, of course. Everything felt right, like the culmination of everything we'd worked for. She was happy, laughing, talking excitedly about job prospects, showing off her diploma. She thanked me publicly in her little speech at the table, called me her rock. The irony is so thick now, I could choke on it. The party back at the rented hall was supposed to be the final celebration. Friends, some family, a few fellow graduates. That's when it happened. I'd gone to get us drinks. The music was loud, cheesy pop songs. People were dancing, congratulating her. I was weaving my way back through the crowd, 2 plastic cups of champagne fizzing in my hands, when I saw her standing near the exit with Sarah. Her back was mostly to me, but I heard it. That cold, clear sentence slicing through the noise. God, I can finally ditch the dead weight. Dr. Harrison is taking me to Europe this summer. Sarah giggled, a high-pitched, nasty sound. Chloe turned slightly, and her eyes met mine across the room. For a split second, I saw something flicker across her face. Panic? No, maybe just annoyance. Like I was an inconvenience, overhearing something I wasn't supposed to know yet. Then her expression smoothed over, replaced by that cool, confident mask she'd perfected. She gave me a tight little smile, almost a smirk, before turning back to Sarah, dismissing me completely. The champagne glasses slipped from my numb fingers, crashing onto the cheap linoleum floor, splashing onto my shoes. Nobody seemed to notice over the music. Dead weight. Europe. Dr. Harrison. The pieces slammed together in my head with brutal force. The late nights, the new clothes, the distance, the subtle contempt. It wasn't stress. It was him. It was always him. She hadn't just fallen out of love with me. She'd been using me, strategically, playing the long game until she got what she needed. That degree, paid for by the dead weight, she was now so eager to discard. The room started to spin. I felt sick. The pride I'd felt just hours before curdled into a toxic sludge of humiliation and rage. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. 5 years. My savings. My life. A means to an end. Later that night, after the party guests had trickled away, leaving behind scattered napkins and half-eaten cake, she confirmed it. No tears, no apologies. Just cold, hard facts delivered with an unnerving calm. We were standing in the parking lot under a flickering fluorescent light. Alex, we need to talk, she started, and I knew. Look, I appreciate everything you've done. Really, I do. But people change. I've changed. This master's program, Dr. Harrison, they've opened up a whole new world for me. A world I don't think you'd fit into. I just stared at her, speechless. Fit into? What about us, Chloe? I finally managed to choke out. What about the engagement, the plans? She sighed, like I was being deliberately obtuse. That was before, Alex. I've outgrown that. Dr. Harrison. James, he understands me. He can offer me things, experiences, a life you simply can't provide. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal? She said it so easily. And the money, Chloe? My voice was shaking now, a low tremor of fury starting to build beneath the shock. The tens of thousands of dollars I poured into that degree? She had the audacity to shrug. Consider it a gift, Alex. A very generous gift. I thought you were happy to help me succeed. Happy to be her stepping stone, apparently. Then she dropped the final bomb. James and I are leaving for Italy in 2 weeks. He has a conference, then we're traveling. I came back to the apartment earlier and packed my things while you were cleaning up the hall. My suitcases are in his car. She gestured vaguely towards the faculty parking lot. Sure enough, I saw his sleek, dark sedan parked under a tree. And then, I saw him, Dr. Harrison, leaning against the passenger door, smoking, looking impatient. He caught my eye and gave me a small, almost pitying nod. My blood ran ice cold, then boiling hot. She turned to go. Goodbye, Alex. I do hope you find someone more on your level someday. She walked away, didn't look back once, got into the passenger seat of Harrison's car. I watched them drive away, her laughter faintly audible even from a distance. My world had just imploded. 5 years, my savings, my future, all gone up in smoke, traded for a European vacation and a pitying nod. But as I stood there, alone in the echoing silence of the parking lot, the gravel crunching under my feet, something inside me snapped. A cold, hard certainty settled in my gut, pushing aside the crushing weight of despair. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. She thought she'd won? She thought she could just use me and discard me like trash? She and her smug professor boyfriend had absolutely no idea what was coming. They'd lit the fuse. Now they were going to watch it burn. The drive back to the apartment we'd shared, my apartment, really, since my name was the only one on the lease, another detail I'd conveniently overlooked in my investment fog, was a blur. Numbness wrapped around me like a shroud. The radio was off, the silence in the cab of my old truck deafening, broken only by the rattling engine and the occasional choked sob that escaped my throat, surprising me with its raw agony. Walking into the apartment was like stepping onto a crime scene. Half-empty drawers pulled open, bare patches on the walls where her photos used to hang, a faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air like a ghost. She'd been methodical, efficient. She'd packed while I was cleaning up the remnants of her celebration. The sheer cold-blooded calculation of it sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. She hadn't just decided this today. This had been planned. For weeks? Months? How long had I been living a lie? How long had I been the oblivious fool funding my own replacement? Sleep was impossible that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, not the loving face I thought I knew, but the cold, dismissive smirk from the parking lot. I heard her words echoing, deadweight, outgrown you, a life you simply can't provide. Each phrase was a fresh stab to the gut. I tried calling her, fueled by a desperate need for. I don't even know what. An explanation? An apology? Maybe just to scream at her. It went straight to voicemail. Her mailbox was full, probably with congratulatory messages. The irony was a physical ache. I sent a text, something incoherent about betrayal, about the money. A few minutes later, a reply notification pinged. My heart leaped, then sank like a stone. It wasn't from Chloe. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but I knew instantly who it belonged to. The message was short, chillingly polite. Mr. Peterson, I believe Chloe made her position clear. Continued attempts to contact her could be construed as harassment. Please respect her decision to move on. We wish you well. Dr. J. Harrison. We wish you well. The condescending prick didn't even try to hide it. He was flaunting it. And the veiled threat? Harassment? After they orchestrated this whole sickening charade? Rage, pure, unadulterated rage, finally burned through the numbness. It felt clarifying. The next few days were a haze of anger and agonizing clarity. I started digging. Not literally, at first. Just mentally. Replaying conversations, reassessing interactions, looking at old photos. Every memory was now tainted, viewed through the filter of her betrayal. Her sudden interest in fine wines, Harrison was a known connoisseur. Her newfound passion for opera, he had season tickets. The expensive art books appearing on our shelves, gifts from him, no doubt. The weekend research trips to galleries in nearby cities. How had I been so blind? It felt like peeling back layers of wallpaper in an old house, only to find rot and decay underneath. Then I remembered something, the cloud storage account. We'd set it up years ago to share photos and documents. She probably hadn't used it recently, preferring whatever newer, sleeker system she had now. But maybe she forgot about the old files. My fingers trembled as I logged in, using the password we'd set together, the name of the stray cat we'd found in our first year. Still worked. My breath hitched. There were the usual folders, vacations, apartment stuff, her uni applications, and then, one I'd never seen before. Tucked away, almost hidden. The name sent a chill down my spine. Harrison Contingency. Contingency? What the hell did that mean? My heart pounded against my ribs as I clicked it open. It wasn't full of love letters or explicit photos, nothing that obvious. It was worse. It contained scanned copies of emails. Emails between Chloe and Dr. James Harrison dating back almost 18 months. Emails discussing her thesis, yes, but also their burgeoning relationship. Hints about meeting discreetly. Discussions about her frustrating home life. Thinly veiled complaints about me and my lack of sophistication. And then, the real kicker, Emails where Harrison explicitly advised her on how to handle me, how to keep me supportive and unsuspecting until her master's was complete, how graduating with distinction, largely thanks to his guidance, would open doors for them. There were even drafts of breakup speeches, evolving over time from something apologetic to the cold, dismissive version she delivered in the parking lot. It was all there. A calculated, long-term manipulation. She hadn't just cheated. She conspired with him to use me as a financial placeholder until she achieved her goal. The contingency was likely what to do if I found out too soon. Seeing it laid out in black and white, their own words condemning them, felt like being punched repeatedly in the stomach. But amidst the pain, a cold resolve hardened within me. This wasn't just heartbreak anymore. This was fraud. I needed help. This was bigger than just me licking my wounds. I called my best friend, Mark. He was over in 20 minutes, a six-pack under his arm and murder in his eyes after I choked out the basic story. He listened patiently as I unloaded everything: the graduation, the overheard comment, Harrison's text, the contingency folder. He didn't offer platitudes. He just got angry with me. That absolute, which he seethed. And him? Professor Sleazeball? Unbelievable. Alex, you can't let them get away with this. This isn't just cheating. This is exploitation. His validation was like a bomb on a raw wound. What do we do? I asked, feeling overwhelmed again. First, Mark said, his voice firm, we get you a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a shark. Someone who knows how to handle manipulative parasites like these. Second, we document everything. Every cent you spent on her tuition, every damning email from that folder, Harrison's threatening text. We build a case. He immediately started looking up lawyers on his phone, while I, fueled by a grim sense of purpose, started printing out bank statements, highlighting tuition payments, credit card bills for textbooks and supplies. Even old emails where Chloe and I had explicitly discussed the financial arrangement as an investment in our future. The numbers were staggering. Tens upon tens of thousands of dollars. Money I could have used for a down payment on a house, to start my business, to build my own future. Seeing it all laid out wasn't just painful, it was infuriating. I tried contacting Chloe's parents. Her mother answered, her voice initially warm, asking how the happy graduate was doing. When I explained, very calmly, what had happened, the warmth vanished, replaced by a frosty defensiveness. Alex, Chloe is young. She's exploring her options. Maybe you two just grew apart. And Dr. Harrison is a very respected man. I'm sure you're misunderstanding the situation. Misunderstanding? I wanted to scream. Did you know I paid for her entire degree? I asked, my voice tight. There was a pause. Well, she mentioned you were helping out, her mother stammered. We always thought that was very generous of you. Helping out? Generous? They knew. Maybe not the specifics of the affair, but they knew I was footing the bill, and they were happy to let their daughter enjoy the benefits while planning her exit strategy. They offered no support, just vague platitudes about wishing me well. Another door slammed shut. It seemed Chloe had done a good job managing her narrative on all fronts. The lawyer Mark found, a sharp woman named Sarah Jenkins who specialized in complex civil litigation, was exactly the shark we needed. I laid everything out for her. The 5-year relationship, the engagement, the explicit agreement, even if verbal, supported by emails, that my financial support was an investment in our joint future, the calculated affair with Harrison, the devastating breakup timed perfectly after graduation, the contingency folder, Harrison's subtly threatening text. She listened intently, her expression growing sterner with each detail. When I showed her the printouts of the emails between Chloe and Harrison, especially the ones discussing how to manage me, her eyes narrowed. This is egregious, she said, her voice sharp. The emotional distress is palpable, but the financial aspect, combined with this evidence of collusion and potential undue influence by a faculty member, this gives us leverage. We discussed options. Suing Chloe for the money back, possibly under unjust enrichment or promissory estoppel, breaking a promise that led to financial detriment, was viable, though potentially messy and hard to win definitively without a written contract. But then Sarah focused on Dr. Harrison and the university angle. You mentioned his name is Dr. James Harrison? She asked, typing rapidly on her laptop. Let's see. Faculty profile. Department regulations. She pulled up the university's official website, navigating through policy documents. My heart started pounding again, remembering Mark's comment. Most universities, Sarah explained, have strict policies about relationships between faculty and students, especially where there's a power imbalance or potential conflict of interest. Given that he was her professor, likely in a position to influence her grades or academic standing, and that he apparently knew she was financially dependent on you while pursuing a relationship with her, this could be a serious violation. She paused, highlighting a section on her screen. Ah, here it is. Faculty Handbook, Section 4.7, Fraternization Policy. It explicitly prohibits exploitative or coercive relationships and relationships where there's undue influence or conflict of interest. It also mentions relationships that could compromise the integrity of the faculty-student relationship or create a hostile or unprofessional environment. And there's a specific clause about relationships with students over whom the faculty member has direct academic supervision. She looked up at me, a glint in her eyes. Based on those emails, Dr. Harrison didn't just cross a line. He tap-danced all over it. And Chloe, by actively participating and benefiting from this unethical relationship, especially given your financial contributions, which facilitated her presence there, she might have just handed us the ammunition we need to make them both accountable. Forget a messy lawsuit against her alone for now. Our first move should be a formal, evidence-backed complaint to the university's ethics committee or provost's office. We target his career, his reputation. That might just persuade both of them that settling with you financially is the path of least resistance. A plan. A real, actionable plan. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. It was about exposing the rot beneath the respectable academic veneer. A grim smile touched my lips for the first time in days. They thought they were untouchable, sailing off to Europe while the dead weight sank behind them. They were wrong. The storm was just gathering, and I was holding the lightning rod. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of focused activity, fueled by righteous anger and the cold, methodical guidance of Sarah Jenkins. We meticulously compiled the evidence. Every bank statement showing tuition payments, every credit card receipt for books and supplies, copies of the lease agreement showing I was solely responsible for our shared apartment, printouts of the sickeningly conspiratorial emails from the Harrison contingency folder, screenshots of Harrison's vaguely threatening text message, and a detailed timeline cross-referencing the affair's progression with my major financial contributions to Chloe's education. Sarah drafted two crucial documents. The first was a formal complaint to the university provost, addressed to the ethics committee. It laid out, in excruciating detail, Dr. James Harrison's flagrant violations of the faculty handbook's fraternization policy, citing specific clauses related to abuse of power, conflict of interest, knowing Chloe was financially dependent on me while engaging in a relationship with her and advising her on how to handle me, and compromising academic integrity. We attached anonymized but verifiable copies of the most damning emails as exhibits. The complaint didn't just target Harrison. It implicitly questioned the validity of Chloe's academic achievements under his direct supervision and potential undue influence, subtly suggesting the university might want to review her degree. That was the dagger aimed at her future. The second document was a formal demand letter, sent simultaneously to both Chloe and Dr. Harrison via certified mail. Return receipt requested. It outlined the financial support I had provided, totaling just over $68,000 over the 4 years of her bachelor's and master's programs, under the explicit understanding and repeated promises of building a shared future. It detailed the evidence of their calculated deception and conspiracy to exploit my financial support. It stated clearly that while the emotional damage was immeasurable, I was demanding restitution for the tuition and related educational expenses under principles of unjust enrichment and promissory estoppel. The letter gave them 30 days to respond with a settlement proposal, making it implicitly clear that failure to do so would result in pursuing further legal action, potentially including making the university complaint public knowledge, which would undoubtedly amplify the professional consequences for Harrison and cast a permanent shadow over Chloe's qualifications. We weren't just asking, we were applying calculated pressure from multiple angles. Sarah advised against any direct contact from my end. Let the documents do the talking, she said. Maintain radio silence. Let them stew in it. The 30 days felt like an eternity. I threw myself into work, putting in overtime not just for the money, but to keep my mind occupied. Mark checked in constantly, a steady source of support. Nights were still tough, haunted by phantom limbs of a life that never was. But the sense of taking action, of fighting back, was empowering. Then, exactly 23 days after the letters were sent, Sarah called. "We have a response," she said, a note of satisfaction in her voice. Not from them directly, but from an attorney representing both Dr. Harrison and Ms. Vance. Chloe was already using her maiden name again, apparently. They're requesting a meeting. My heart hammered. This was it. The first crack in their arrogant facade. "What do we do?" I asked. "We agree to meet," Sarah replied coolly. "My office. Next Tuesday. No direct interaction between you and them. Lawyers only in the room initially. You'll be nearby if needed. Let's see what they're offering." The day of the meeting arrived, gray and drizzling, mirroring my mood, anxious but resolute. I sat in Sarah's small conference room, nursing a lukewarm coffee, while she met with their lawyer, a slick-looking man named Peterson, no relation, thankfully, in her main office down the hall. The minutes crawled by. I could hear muffled voices, Peterson's initially confident, then increasingly strained. Sarah's tone remained level, unwavering. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 45 minutes, Sarah walked back in, closing the door behind her. "Okay," she said, sitting down opposite me. Initial posture was bluster and denial. Claimed it was a consensual relationship that began after she was no longer his student, that your financial support was purely a gift with no strings attached, that the emails were taken out of context. She paused. Then I informed him that the university provost's office had acknowledged receipt of our complaint and confirmed an internal investigation into Dr. Harrison's conduct was officially underway, effective immediately. I also mentioned we have detailed records of their discrete meetings coinciding with her enrollment in his specific advanced seminars. She allowed herself a small, predatory smile. Mr. Peterson's tone changed rather quickly after that. Apparently, the university investigation was the tipping point. Harrison's career, his reputation, everything he'd built was on the line. The threat of public scandal, of termination with cause, was terrifyingly real for him. For Chloe, the prospect of her hard-won master's degree being scrutinized or even invalidated due to academic misconduct, coupled with the social fallout and the very real possibility of being dragged into a protracted legal battle she couldn't afford, was equally devastating. Their lawyer, after a brief, flustered call with his clients who were presumably waiting elsewhere, came back with a counteroffer. It wasn't the full $68,000, but it was substantial, a settlement of $50,000, contingent on me signing a non-disclosure agreement and formally withdrawing the university complaint against Dr. Harrison. Sarah laid out the pros and cons. We could push for the full amount in court, but it would be costly, time-consuming, and the outcome wasn't guaranteed. Accepting the settlement offered immediate financial restitution and, more importantly, a clear admission of wrongdoing, even if masked by legal jargon. Withdrawing the complaint felt wrong somehow. Letting Harrison off the hook? But Sarah put it bluntly. "Alex, the university is already investigating. Our complaint lit the fire. It's out of our hands now, technically. Even if we withdraw it, they have the evidence, they know about the policy violations. They have a duty to act to protect their reputation and students. Harrison's career is likely cooked regardless. This settlement gets you significant compensation and allows you to close this chapter definitively. Dragging it through the courts keeps you tied to them emotionally and financially." She was right. My goal wasn't necessarily to ruin Harrison utterly, though the thought wasn't unpleasant. It was to hold them accountable, to reclaim what was mine, and to sever the ties. $50,000 wasn't just money, it was a symbol. It was the price of their betrayal, paid back. "Okay," I said, my voice hoarse. "Let's do it. Draw up the agreement." Signing the settlement agreement felt surreal. Peterson, their lawyer, looked uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact. Chloe and Harrison weren't present. They signed their copies separately, spared the humiliation of facing me. As part of the agreement, the funds were to be transferred within 5 business days. When the notification hit my bank account exactly 4 days later, incoming wire transfer, $50,000, I didn't feel elation. There was no fist pump, no triumphant cheer, just a profound, heavy sense of finality. And a deep, weary relief. It was done. The financial tether was cut. The aftermath unfolded quickly, mostly heard through the grapevine via Mark, who had a friend working in the university administration. Dr. James Harrison was quietly placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. A few months later, his profile vanished from the university website. Rumor had it he resigned for personal reasons before they could formally terminate him, his academic career effectively over. Chloe. Her fate was less clear but equally grim. The European trip obviously never happened. Without Harrison's financial backing and professional connections, and now saddled with her share of the settlement repayment, I suspected Harrison probably threw her under the bus financially once his own neck was on the line. Her new world likely evaporated. I heard she left town, moved back in with her parents temporarily. Her prestigious master's degree felt tainted. Her bridge to the art world burned before she could even cross it. Their relationship, built on deceit and mutual convenience, predictably imploded under the weight of the consequences. I never spoke to Chloe again after that parking lot confrontation. Never needed to. The legal documents, the settlement, the quiet implosion of the future she'd stolen mine to build, they said everything that needed to be said. I stood there, looking at the balance on my phone screen. $50,000. It couldn't erase the pain, the humiliation, the years wasted believing in a lie. It couldn't undo the sacrifices or give me back the trust I'd so foolishly given away. But it was something tangible. It was accountability served cold. It was the end of their chapter in my life. And as I transferred the money into my savings account, the one I'd depleted for her, I knew, deep down, that closing this ugly chapter wasn't the end of my story. The real work, the work of healing, of rebuilding not just my finances but my sense of self, my belief in the possibility of a genuine future, that work was just beginning. The scars were deep, but for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally start stitching them up. 2 years. That's how long it's been since the settlement check cleared, since the toxic cloud of Chloe and Harrison finally dissipated from my life. 2 years feels both like a lifetime ago and just yesterday. The initial aftermath was quiet. Almost too quiet. There was the grim satisfaction of knowing justice, in its own messy way, had been served. Harrison vanished from the academic world like smoke in the wind. Mark's friend at the university confirmed he'd essentially been blacklisted. No other reputable institution would touch him after the scandal, even if it was kept relatively internal. He apparently moved somewhere out west, trying to start over in a completely different field, his distinguished career reduced to ashes. Chloe's trajectory was similarly bleak, though perhaps less dramatic. The whispers I heard were that she bounced back to her parents' place for a while, the shame and the debt weighing heavily on her. The grand European tour, the sophisticated life she craved, evaporated like a mirage. She eventually found a job, something mundane in corporate communications for a mid-level company in a different state, a far cry from the curated galleries and prestigious museums she'd envisioned. The master's degree, paid for in such a sordid way, seemed more like an anchor than a launching pad. I heard through a mutual acquaintance, one of the few who hadn't taken sides but just felt vaguely sorry for everyone involved, that she and Harrison had a spectacular, bitter falling out shortly after the settlement. Blame was thrown around like confetti, apparently. So much for undying love and shared intellectual pursuits. They used each other, just like they used me, and when the foundation crumbled, there was nothing left. She tried contacting me once, about 6 months after everything went down. A long, rambling email popped into my inbox late one night, full of justifications masked as apologies, blaming Harrison's influence, hinting at her struggles, vaguely suggesting maybe we could talk someday. I read the first few lines, felt a familiar wave of disgust and exhaustion wash over me, and hit delete without finishing it. Then I blocked her email address. There was nothing left to say. Her struggles were the consequences of her own choices, and frankly, I didn't care anymore. That indifference felt like a victory in itself. As for me, those 2 years have been transformative. The $50,000 settlement helped, obviously. It replenished a good chunk of my savings, easing the financial sting. But the real rebuilding wasn't about the money. It was internal. The betrayal cut deep, shattering my trust not just in others, but in my own judgment. How could I have been so wrong about someone I loved, someone I planned to spend my life with? How could I have ignored so many red flags? I spent a lot of time wrestling with those questions. I channeled the anger and hurt into something productive. I threw myself back into my woodworking hobby, the one Chloe used to subtly mock. Late nights in my garage, sanding, shaping, creating something tangible and real with my own hands felt therapeutic. It was honest work, just like my day job, and it was mine. I started selling a few pieces online, small things at first, cutting boards, picture frames. Then commissions started coming in for custom furniture. It took off faster than I ever expected. That little side hustle I'd put on hold for Chloe's dream? It's now a thriving small business. Last year, I finally cut back my hours at the plant to focus more on my own craft. It doesn't make me rich, not yet anyway, but the satisfaction of building something from scratch, something I own, something born from passion, not obligation, that's priceless. The healing wasn't just about work, though. Mark and my other close friends were incredible. They didn't let me wallow, but they also didn't rush me. They dragged me out for beers, helped me move into a new apartment, getting rid of every last trace of her, and just listened without judgment on the nights when the anger or sadness resurfaced. I even gave therapy a shot, something I never thought I'd do. Talking it through with a neutral third party helped me unpack the layers of hurt, understand the dynamics of manipulation, and forgive myself for being deceived. It wasn't weakness that made me trust her. It was love, misplaced and exploited. Learning that distinction was crucial. It allowed me to start rebuilding my self-worth, brick by painful brick. And then, about a year ago, I met Anna. It was unexpected. She's a graphic designer, funny, fiercely independent, and incredibly kind. We met volunteering at an animal shelter, another thing I started doing to get out of my own head. There were no games, no hidden agendas. She liked my slightly calloused hands, found my woodworking fascinating, and laughed at my terrible jokes. She knew about my past. I was cautious, but honest about the broad strokes early on. She didn't flinch. She just listened, told me she was sorry I went through that, and then asked me about the intricate joinery on a bookshelf I was building. She valued me for me, not for what I could provide or what status I could offer. Being with her feels easy, comfortable, real. It's a quiet kind of happiness, the kind built on mutual respect and genuine affection, not grand pronouncements and calculated investments. It's a world away from the drama and deceit I endured with Chloe. I actually saw Chloe once, a few months back. It was completely accidental. I was in a nearby city for a craft fair, celebrating a successful weekend with Anna at a nice bistro. We were laughing about something silly when I glanced towards the entrance. And there she was, alone, waiting for a table. She looked diminished. The confidence she wore like armor was gone, replaced by a kind of weary hardness. Her clothes were professional but bland, a stark contrast to the sophisticated image she'd cultivated under Harrison's influence. Our eyes met across the crowded room. For a heartbeat, I saw a flicker of something in her expression, recognition, maybe shock, maybe even regret. I didn't feel anger or pain or even pity. Just nothing. A vast, cool indifference. I gave her the slightest, most neutral of nods, a ghost of the pitying nod Harrison had given me that fateful night, though mine held no malice, only distance, and turned back to Anna, picking up our conversation exactly where we left off. I didn't look back. That encounter confirmed it. I had truly, finally moved on. She was just a stranger now, a footnote in a painful chapter one had closed for good. Looking back on it all now, the whole sordid affair feels like a lifetime ago, like a particularly dark and twisted movie I once watched. Do I regret helping Chloe initially? No, not the act of helping itself. That came from a place of love and a genuine desire to see someone I cared about succeed. What I regret is ignoring my gut feelings, dismissing the red flags, allowing myself to be blinded by a manufactured dream. I learned some incredibly hard lessons about trust, about boundaries, about the importance of seeing people for who they truly are, not who you wish them to be. I learned that financial sacrifice means nothing if it's not built on a foundation of mutual respect and honesty. I learned that sometimes, the most devastating betrayals can lead to the most profound personal growth. The scars are still there, faint white lines on my emotional landscape, but they don't hurt anymore. They just remind me of the strength I didn't know I had, the resilience that allowed me to rebuild my life from the wreckage. Life doesn't always give you happy endings tied up with neat little bows. Sometimes, it just gives you the chance to write a new story, a better story, on your own terms. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And that brings us to the end of today's story. Thank you so much for tuning in. I truly hope to see you again for more fascinating tales ahead. If you enjoyed it, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next adventure. See you soon.